Time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. President Muhammadu Buhari has effected immediate changes to the security architecture with the replacement of the nation's service chief. This comes after months of pressure on the government to replace them for poor handling of the country's security challenges. In a statement, Special Advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on media, Femi Adesina, said the president accepted the resignation from the former service chiefs and their retirement for service. The new service chiefs are Major General Lucky E. O. Irabo, who replaces General Abayomi Olonishakin as Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Ibrahim Atahiru, who takes over for Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai as Chief of Army Staff, and Rear Admiral Zubair Gambo, now the new Chief of Naval Staff, and Air Vice Marshal Isiaka Oladayo Amo, appointed Chief of Air Staff. President Buhari asked the new service chiefs to be loyal and dedicated in the discharge of their duties and responsibilities. Dr. Abati, let's break this down this morning.
Well, I mean, people were surprised and at the same time excited, and perhaps you could say they were shocked yesterday when the news came out through a press statement by Femi Adesina, presidential spokesman, that the service chiefs have been asked or have resigned their appointments and they've gone into retirement. And the question on the lips of many persons, the comment was, oh, finally, at last. Because you recall that since the appointment of these particular service chiefs in 2015, the reaction by many Nigerians, including the National Assembly, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and by socio-cultural groups, including the Middle Belt Forum, the Ohaneze Ndigbo, the Refinery, the Pan-Nigeria Delta Forum, and other concerned citizens had been that, look, these service chiefs were performing below expectations. They were not delivering. And the president had been asked to exercise his powers to hire and fire. The point was also raised that these service chiefs had already gone beyond the age of retirement. And what was the point in the president keeping them in the place in the face of banditry, escalation in terrorism, and the seeming inability of the government of Nigeria to deal with that crisis. But now, at the end of the day, the president has accepted, as the statement stated, their resignation and their decision to go into retirement. Well, some people say better late than never. Many of the socio-cultural groups, they welcome it. But some people are of the view, and I think it's a very strong view, that the president did not seize the moment. He did not seize the day. I mean, he had great opportunities in the past to have acted decisively to ask the service chiefs to leave, but he did not. In fact, as recently as November 2020, he was still expressing confidence in their abilities to stem the tide of terrorism in Nigeria, an expression of confidence that many Nigerians do not agree with. But now, what we see out there is a feeling of relief, and that is based on the perception, the assumption that perhaps there is need for change. You change your team if the team is not working, and that there is need for new ideas. There is need for a reform of the security architecture, and that could begin with the change of personnel who have spent 5 years and who, in the estimation of Nigerians, have not been able to make a difference. So at the end of the day, it will look like public opinion has triumphed. It will look like the president of Nigeria has finally, whether the presidency admits it or not, succumbed to public pressure. And it's a subtle reminder of how public opinion is important, and that explains why there is a lot of excitement that this set of service chiefs are out of the place. However, people are asking, how about the Inspector General of Police? His tenure is said to have expired or about to expire. Will the president take a decision on him? Now, some of the fallouts. If you look at the statement that was issued, the presidency says, oh, they have offered their resignation and they are going on retirement. Well, many Nigerians who have reacted say, no, they have been sacked and they deserve to be sacked. That is one point. The statement also praised them for overwhelming achievements in the pursuit of enduring peace in Nigeria. Many of the commentators that I have seen do not agree with that. They don't see what those overwhelming achievements are. With the abduction of boys, abduction of young people, and the kind of, the killings of farmers and the audacity of terrorists across the country, particularly in the northeastern flank. So people say, no, they don't see what those overwhelming achievements are. That if those achievements exist, then the presidency is probably guilty of misjudgment. And that at this moment in Nigeria, you cannot talk about enduring peace. Third point, now will change of personnel result in greater performance in terms of the security situation in the country? Well, that was the expectation of persons, but that may not happen. Yeah. And the argument is that this new team that you have put in place, that new team must be empowered. They must be given the wherewithal. The larger issue is rejigging the security architecture, security reform at all levels. And if this change of personnel is going to lead to that, considering the fact that these new service chiefs are also products of the system, except something is done to empower them and to give them a new mandate, we may not see any difference. Now, there are some other issues that Nigerians have brought up. One is the appointment of the Chief of Army Staff, Atahiru Ibrahim. It is said that in 2017, that the outgoing Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tuko Buratai, had given him an ultimatum to deliver Ibrahim Shekau, dead or alive, the leader of the Boko Haram, and that he didn't succeed. And it was on the basis of that he was deployed to the 82 Division as the commander in charge of 82 Div. But he, by his own account, we're told, says no, it was a routine deployment when he was made commander of Operation Lafi Adole and commander of the Lake Chad Basin Multinational Joint Task Force, and that he discharged his assignment, creditably well. Now, some people are saying they are bringing that up. So I think that the new Chief of Army Staff has a duty to make sure that, he works on his own image, because he's coming into the office with this perception that this is a non-performer. If tomorrow he does not perform, then people will say, well, after all, Buratai saw through it, so why did they appoint him? Now, Lucky Okafor is the new Chief of Defense Staff. He is Ika from Delta State, Agbo. Now, there have also been some comments about him. He has seen action. He has been in Operation Lafi Adole. He has been in charge of TRADOC, the training command. But people are saying, well, is he actually a Southerner? Is he Igbo? Is he actually Ika? Because there is also the ethnic argument. And the argument is that Lucky Agbo is actually a Muslim, married to a Muslim. And that with his appointment, there is some Muslim, game, religious game that is being played. Well, I'm not going to comment on that because I really do not think that that is an issue. However, another issue along ethnic lines that have been brought up by Afenifere and the spokesperson of the Christian Association of Nigeria is that there is no Igbo on the list. Well, that is the Nigerian story for you, because if you look at it, you have Lucky Okafor, Chief of Defense Staff from Delta State. You have two people from the Northwest, Gambo and the Chief of Army Staff, Atahiru Ibrahim. And then you have Isiaka Alao from Amao, that's the name, from Oshogbo in Osun State. He's from Osun State. Now, and people are saying, where is the Igbo presence here? So, well, I don't know. That's Nigeria for you. The other issue that has been brought up is that many military generals, including Lieutenant General, what's that his name? Lamidi Adeosun. Yeah. And the whole of Cost 33 has been wiped out because these new people are from Cost 34 and Cost 35. Yeah. All of this could have implications for esprit de corps within the military. And I hope that these are strands of it that President Muhammadu Buhari will further look at. I
mean, many variations to this. That's all. This one, thank you so much. That's all on News Live. We'll take a short break. Now, when we return, we'll have Rotudiri, Michael Wilson, Adeso Mora, Aaron Akerjola to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, spotlight activities, and everything packed for you on the morning show. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the morning show right here. He's back with a bang. He's back on business, fit as a fiddle. I'm excited to have you back, bro. Rotu Sudiri, great to have you.
Thank you, Rufai. It's great to be back. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Doctor, and good morning, Adesoa.
Great to see you.
Rotus Afolabi Odiri. Good to have you back.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We kick things off, of course, with the outcome of the MPC meeting, which concluded yesterday, the first meeting of 2021. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank essentially held all rates constant. So the benchmark interest rate of 11.5% was unchanged. The asymmetric corridor around the rates at plus 100 basis points, minus 700 basis points, that was also left unchanged. The cash reserve ratio at 27.5% unchanged. Liquidity at 30% ratio, that was also unchanged as well. I mean, if you look at the shocks that the Nigerian economy is facing with galloping inflation at almost a 32-month high of 15.75%, you've got the impact on oil prices from COVID-19. The central bank essentially decided that, look, we're going to just take a wait and see approach. Because honestly, if you look at Nigeria's problems, it's not something there's a limit to what monetary policy can do. And as the central bank governor said after the rates after the decision was announced, he called on the federal government to partner with the private sector in order to, assist with respect to infrastructure development. So they're still calling on the fiscal policy side to try to support what the CBN is doing. The central bank governor defended the government financing, basically the ways and means facility. If you remember earlier in the week, Fitch, the global ratings agency, came out with a report saying that the continuing financing, in the breach of the cap, which is supposed to be no more than 5% of the prior year's revenues. So, for example, 2020 revenues came in at about 3.9 trillion. I believe about 5% of that, the CBN was not supposed to finance the government at no more than 196, 198 billion. But they ended up financing them to the tune of 2.8 trillion naira. So Fitch came out with a report saying that, look, that has some risks to macroeconomic stability. Central bank governor came out and defended it, saying that, listen, we are a lender of last resort for the federal government. The Ways and Means facility is an overdraft, and if the government has a shortfall, we have to fund them. But it's understood, at least Fitch says, that they believe that that will be tempered down later this year. To be honest, the US, the UK, governments around the world have been printing money trying to support the different countries that have suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic. Although you would argue in Nigeria's case that the Ways and Means facility, the breach of that cap has been happening leading up to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is not the first time this is happening. And also importantly, the central bank extended the 5% loan rate. That is for intervention funds, which was supposed to expire in March of this year. They extended it to March of 2022, which is an indication that for businesses, different sectors of the economy that are able to access that rate, which, by the way, was initially at 9%, was cut by 400 basis points to 5% in order to make financing, at least getting loans, more affordable for sectors that were affected. It shows that by extending this by 1 year, an extra year to March 2022, the economy still needs support. So that's a very important extension there coming from the central bank. So at this point, what happens next is that we look to the fiscal side and expect to see more support. CBN has done as much as they can. I'll move to the IMF. In their latest World Economic Outlook update, the IMF slightly revised Nigeria's growth prospects for 2021 to 1.5%. It was initially 1.7% in their October outlook. Essentially, there were revisions also for the global economy. I believe the IMF says the global economy should now grow at 5.5%, about a 3 basis point difference from the prior updates. In 2021, 4.2% in 2022. For Sub-Saharan Africa, I believe it's saying Sub-Saharan Africa should grow at 3.2%. The IMF was a little more optimistic, cautiously optimistic, if I may say so, in their latest update, saying that, look, the vaccine outlays essentially could will allow the global economy, along with sub-Saharan Africa, along with Nigeria, to recover. But they did say that there will be varying degrees of recovery for different countries, and it's going to be based on access to medical interventions, effectiveness of policy support, and logistics concerns with getting these vaccines out there. Remember, for Nigeria, there wasn't a budget outlay for procurement of vaccines. So we'll have to see what happens with respect to how we move forward in that respect. But essentially, this is what we're still hoping that there's growth in the Nigerian economy in 2021. But population growth is at 2.5, 2.6%, 1.5%. Anything below that growth rate doesn't essentially keep up with population growth. But still, we're eager to see when the Nigerian economy will get itself out of recession, which we're still in. Looking forward to seeing the Q4 GDP numbers from the Bureau of Statistics. And finally, the NNPC. In its latest reports, have said that the refineries collectively lost about 152 billion naira in 15 months. They've been idle from about June 2019 till September of 2020. Kaduna Refinery lost about 57 billion, Port Harcourt 48 billion, Warri 45 billion. And they're saying that, look, they had to get them idle in order to revamp these refineries. But at this stage, we're still not sure how much the cost of revamping them, how much it will cost, and also where the money will come from. I mean, everyone's familiar with our refinery issues as far as their capacity. Over the last decade, I think 445,000 total capacity. They've only done about 20% of that over the last 10 years. Mele Kyari, Group Managing Director of the NNPC, is saying that he hopes he can get that to 90% by 2023. But that does seem to be a tall order. And that's our updates for Africa.
All right, Rotus, first, I miss you so much. Good to have you back, man.
Thank you.
The refineries, goodness me, I don't know what is happening. Keeps making losses by the day. But I want to talk real quickly. I know they've not come out. Are we doing some sort of QE? Because we are passing this threshold that the CBN can give to the government. Then definitely, how are we getting that money? Then there must be some printing of money going on that we don't know about. Is there any form of QE going on? And secondly, I want you to speak to me about inflation. There are possibilities that when we have the next results coming out, the inflation number could go as 16% now, could trickle down a little bit. Is there any talk about that you've heard?
Well, okay, so for the quantitative easing essentially is printing. It's not just unique to Nigeria. It's also been happening again in the United States. If you look at the United States, debt to GDP, also same thing with the United Kingdom. They've all been printing. So that's been happening because there has to be some form of support. But again, the fiscal side has to support the monetary side. So that's a yes as far as QE is concerned. For inflation, I mean, President Buhari, has called for the reopening of the land borders, but the pressures that we're seeing, the cost push inflation, those pressures are still there. So in the short term, we're still expecting to see that continue to climb, and yeah, it could breach 16%. We're at 15.75 for December. We could see that breach 16%. For January. Also, food inflation almost at 20%. So we're going to see those pressures in the short term. Hopefully, that's moderated as more goods and services are allowed to flow through the land borders.
Well, the refineries clearly have become an embarrassment, and it's unfortunate that the Group Managing Director of NNPC, Mele Kyari, made the revival, the reappraisal and the reoperationalization of those refineries top of his agenda. I don't think that is an agenda that he will be able to achieve by 2023 as he's promised. And it's just unfortunate that Nigeria has to go across the border to other countries to go and invest in Niger Republic in a refinery when we have refineries here in Port Harcourt, Kaduna, and Warri that are not functioning. There are persons who have said, look, those refineries should be sold as scrap because there is no hope there. The only hope that we see is investment of hope in the Dangote refinery, which Nigerians are hoping that if it comes up, then it will be able to make a difference. This is the price we're paying for how we have mismanaged the oil and gas sector. As for the MPC, is this not an expression of helplessness? When the MPC met in November 2020 it was the same thing. They kept the parameters the same. This time around, the same. And they are so optimistic. What is that optimism based on? In the face of inflationary pressures, problems with the foreign exchange, crisis with the oil revenue and all of that. Well, they won't admit their helplessness. We need to take a break. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Michael Wilson from London, all right? We'll be right back. Moving up to Business Update, Michael Wilson, Joseph from London. Michael, how's it going? Good morning.
And very cheered to have Rotus back as well. Good man. Glad
How market is a Nigerian way of saying what's going on? How market, Michael?
The markets are rejoicing in the fact that Rotus is back. However, internationally, I think the word is ranging. Really, that's how you give the summation of what's happening in the markets. That's a fairly feeble excuse for people like me who don't really know what's going on. And I'll tell you why. Because there's a bit of risk still on in Asia because they're not quite sure about this US stimulus package. And every eye, which I will talk about later on, is on the FOMC meeting in the United States this evening and what their comments actually are. So as far as the detail of Asia is concerned, here we go. Chinese industrial profits not too bad. Still, though, they're worried about whether this stimulus plan will actually happen. Stimulus means that marginally the Nikkei 225 slightly higher, Kospi slightly up. Chinese retail investors still hopping out of the market right now, and they're worried about liquidity in the market. In other words, they're not quite sure which way the People's Bank of China is going to go. Shanghai Composite down about 1%. Now, the big stuff from China is this, as far as I'm concerned, that it looks like they might be opening the door to Jack Ma again, because if you remember, the stock market debut of Ant Financial was due in November. It looks like now that the Chinese are saying that given the right sort of circumstances, then they might allow him to float Ant Financial, or to try for the flotation once again. He did make his appearance before talking about teachers the week before last, which we talked about very, very slightly. So is he back? Well, we'll see. If he does come back, then I think it'll say a lot about the Chinese authorities' attitude towards financial markets. Remember, if Ant were to float, then it would sell shares worth about $34.4 billion. It would be the biggest flotation that the Shanghai and the Hong Kong stock markets have ever seen. So to the US stimulus then, and which way are we going? The Senate agreement about this is a nightmarish progress. I'm going to give you a nice picture which one of my market commentators gave to me this morning, and we've talked about this on the programme before. The pavlova. Don't we love a pavlova for pud? Yes, we do. Imagine if you're eating a pavlova and you get one mouthful, and then you think, oh, that's nice, eating one berry or piece of meringue at one time. But for your next mouthful, you've got to get permission to do it. And so it goes on right through the pavlova. That's really what's going on right now and will go on in the Senate. So it's deeply frustrating for everybody actually there. But the progress will be slow. And we cannot guarantee what the outcome of that's going to be. It is crucially important that the biggest economy in the world, in as much as it's quoted, the biggest economy in the world, is stimulated and begins to continue after the pandemic. Microsoft, here's one, a big gain for them, big gain in the share price, because guess what? We've all been working from home. And guess what some of us have been using? Correct, Microsoft and its products. But here's the other one. While we were at home, we were making our own coffee. So what happened to Starbucks then? No big coffee hit for them. Saw revenue fall 5% over December. They're expecting it to jump back again, comparable sales up between 18 and 23% this year. Well, we wait to see about that, but it's not a bad barometer, is it really, for people getting back to work and mixing together and all the rest of it. Your local local coffee bar, your local Starbucks, or whatever it may be, Costa Coffee, etc. Now, turning our attention, Reuters mentioned the IMF as far as Nigeria is concerned. Actually, this is them looking globally, and what they're actually saying is that they've become slightly more upbeat about where the global economy is going. However, they are saying, and I think we could have told them this is the problem with these large institutions. They do tend to talk about the blasted obvious, quite honestly, a lot of the time. But they're saying that the variants in COVID could actually cause a threat to that. However, we knew this. However, they are updating their forecast globally by about 0.3%. So hoo-de-doo, we're on the road to recovery again. Well, no, we're not. And I'll tell you why we aren't. Because what about this UK and EU vaccine war that's going on at the moment? Those EU and UK vaccine wars continue. The head of AstraZeneca has been hauled over the coals by the EU because apparently they've not been pleased with the progress of that company supplying the EU with its drugs. The head of AstraZeneca has told an Italian newspaper that his team were working 24/7 to get through many of the issues and so on. He also said, and this is the important thing, the EU's late decision to sign contracts has given them not enough time to sort out the hiccups of actually physically supplying, whereas the UK signed 3 months before the EU, and so therefore the teething problems actually through the supply chain, not the drug, the supply chain have actually been ironed out. Now, what we're getting in the UK, as you can quite understand after Brexit, is a lot of accusations coming from the EU that we've somehow taken their portion of the drugs. How childish can that be? But there's a lot of journey in this story. You laugh about it, but let me tell you that Germany is now wading in, criticising the EU's slow start. And when your main economic power in a union starts complaining about the union itself, then you've got to take notice of that. UK, sterling climbing for some reason, got no idea why that is. Climbing, it's saying that the markets are saying it's because the unemployment data was positive yesterday, saying that its worst time was 2015. I disagree with that completely. I think what's going to happen is that when the furlough scheme comes to an end at the end of March or April or wherever it may be, even if they extend it, unemployment will rise again because there are people who are receiving furlough who are counted as employed at the moment. They clearly aren't. So it doesn't paint a true picture. So those kind of figures are out of date. So I wouldn't be buying into sterling if I were you, but then again, I'm not a money breaker. Commodities, oil, slightly up, and gold too. But the big one, OMC tonight.
Okay, Michael, real quickly, what happened to Debenhams? What happened to Debenhams? High Street, British High Street, 12,000 jobs gone. What happened?
Well, what happens is that the link will probably, the online presence will probably maintain, but the people buying it are actually saying that they won't be looking after the property and they won't be looking after the staff. Debenhams was never really a great retail event, to be absolutely honest. You walked in the store and there were loads of different franchises, not like going into Harrods or Selfridges, which over the years have made an effort to have a great retail experience, a kind of place that you would want to go. You'd have lunch at and so on. Not with Debenhams, not with a lot of these high street stores. The problem with them has been going on for a long time. It was accelerated by the pandemic and obviously accelerated by people not going back to the high street again. But it's an indication that most of your shopping will be done online in future. But again, I think this is something that we knew.
Well, Michael, so much to talk about. I would have wanted you to comment on the digital yuan, the Chinese trying to see how they can displace the dollar as international currency, and then Google trying to sidetrack the Australian government by coming up with their own local news sites with local contractors, whether that will work, and how Scott Morrison, who has been so nationalistic, will respond to that. And then British newspapers looking so gloomy this morning, over 100,000 COVID-19 deaths, and with the Prime Minister saying that he's deeply sorry, which was not the tone that we had about a few days ago with Matt Hancock saying that by summer or thereabouts, there will be great opportunity for full recovery or normal recovery in the United Kingdom. But maybe we'll take on some of those issues tomorrow.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Dr. Bati. Speaking of Australia, it was National Day in Australia yesterday. If you're watching us, you might be in Australia this morning. I'm sure you had a great time yesterday. Adesua, we talk COVID-19, everything, and she does this excellently, where I should emphasize. Yeah.
Thank you, Rufai. Yeah, well, let's pick it up from where Dr. Abachi stopped it with Michael Wilson there. The green milestone from the UK surpassing those deaths. It's a general outlook in the world. Yesterday, the world crossed the 100 million mark of coronavirus infections, with a world population of some 7.6 billion people. According to the latest World Bank figures, the global case tally suggests that about 1 in every 76 people in the world has now had coronavirus. The world passed the threshold of 1 million confirmed cases on April 2nd, 2020, 10 million on June 28, 2020, and it took until November 7, 2020 for the world to register 50 million confirmed cases. Since then, the trend has accelerated sharply. The 90 million case mark was surpassed less than 3 weeks ago on January 10, and almost a quarter of the 100 million cases reported globally is from the United States. Globally, over 2 million people, the figure on the top right corner of your screen, have died from the virus. In Nigeria, a further 1,303 new cases of the coronavirus infections were recorded yesterday. Also, we recorded 15 deaths in Nigeria yesterday in the last 24 hours. According to statistics from the NCDC, 478 of those infections came in from Lagos. So far, in total, there are 124,299 cases. 92,276 people have been discharged, and 1,522 people have died with the virus. Meanwhile, in Lagos, one of the tertiary institutions is closing in-person learning after its director of academic planning reportedly died from COVID-19 complications. In a statement by the academic board of the Yaba College of Technology, popularly known as Yabatech, following this development, all lectures are now to be delivered online, while students are to vacate their hostels latest by Thursday this week. It also ordered all members of staff of the academic planning unit to go on self-isolation for 2 weeks. A meeting of more than 10 persons should be conducted virtually, as the management hopes to decontaminate the environment, and workers are to come to the office in alternate days. And away from Nigeria, relatives of people who have died from the coronavirus in China are demanding to meet with the WHO expert team, saying it should speak with the affected families who allege that they are being muzzled by the Chinese government. After months of negotiations, you would recall that China finally approved the visit by researchers from the United Nations, but has not indicated whether they will be allowed to gather evidence or talk to families, saying only the team can exchange views with Chinese scientists. That's the update.
Quick comments. I mean, over 100 million cases of COVID-19 across the world, and the numbers continue to increase. And the US, India, and Brazil account for 2/5 of the cases worldwide. The US has recorded over 25 million cases with over 400,000 deaths. India, over 10 million cases with over 197,000 deaths. Brazil, over 9 million cases with over 217,000 deaths. So, you know, the scourge, the pandemic, remains a major problem for the rest of the world. And we've seen many of these countries taking measures, which is why I was concerned that one of the fallouts of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting was the CBN in its communique saying that Nigeria should not even think about a lockdown because the economic situation in the country is gloomy if you look at the various indicators, and that if you consider any lockdown, it will further worsen the economic situation and erode whatever had been gained with the stimulus, the monetary policy interventions of the CBN. Now, the CBN says this through the MPC, but at the same time, he's saying it is optimistic. And that's why I was asking Rotus the question, what is that optimism based on? What we have seen in other countries is that countries take very hard decisions, If they have to lock down in certain regions, as you have seen in China, they do so. If they have to have a national lockdown, as you have seen in the United Kingdom, they do so. I think we need to consider all of this as we try to strike a balance between lives and livelihood in Nigeria.